Have you ever noticed how the most honest people often finish last, while those who guard their words carefully seem to move through life with an almost mysterious advantage? They don't overshare. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They simply choose their truths strategically. And suddenly, they're the ones everyone wants to understand, the ones who hold power without shouting about it. Now imagine if you stopped treating truth as an obligation you owe to everyone. What if your honesty became a gift, not a reflex? That's where real power begins. When you tell everyone everything, you become predictable. And predictability in this world is vulnerability. People study your patterns, learn your triggers, discover your weaknesses, and before you know it, your own transparency has become the weapon they use against you. But the day you learn to be selective with your truth, the game transforms entirely. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago when he wrote, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Brutal, perhaps. But look around you. The world doesn't reward radical honesty. It rewards those who understand that truth is a tool, not a testimony. You have been raised on fairy tales about honesty. Tell the truth and you'll be rewarded. Honesty is the best policy. The truth will set you free. Beautiful sentiments, aren't they? But here's what nobody told you with brutal clarity. Those messages were designed to make you controllable. Because when you always tell the truth, you're always exposed, and exposure without power is just another word for exploitation. Think about it. When was the last time your complete honesty actually protected you? When you shared your plans and someone rushed to copy them. When you revealed your struggles and someone used them as gossip. When you admitted your doubts and someone exploited them as weakness. Your truth became their advantage, didn't it? And yet you keep doing it, convinced that authenticity requires you to be an open book for anyone who wants to read. Machiavelli saw through this illusion 500 years ago. He understood that most people live in a world of delusions. Seeing what they want to see, believing what comforts them, clinging to narratives that protect their ego. And here's the uncomfortable part. Your truth doesn't enlighten these people. It either threatens them or becomes ammunition. Do you know why? Because people aren't seeking truth. They're seeking confirmation of what they already believe. Carl Jung would have agreed with Machiavelli on this point. Jung spoke about the shadow, those aspects of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. And here's what most miss. When you speak truth to someone who hasn't faced their shadow, you're not offering wisdom, you're triggering defense mechanisms. They won't thank you for your honesty, they'll resent you for disturbing their comfortable illusions. This is why the most powerful people in any room are often the quietest. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand that words are currency. And you don't throw currency at everyone who passes by, do you? You invest it carefully, strategically, only where it yields returns. Your truth should work the same way. Every revelation should serve a purpose. Every disclosure should advance your position. Every moment of honesty should be a calculated choice, not an automatic response. But you've been conditioned differently. Since childhood, you were taught that withholding truth makes you manipulative, that strategic silence makes you dishonest, that guarding your thoughts makes you fake. So you learned to vomit your inner world onto anyone who showed mild interest. You mistake transparency for intimacy. You confuse oversharing with authenticity. And meanwhile, those who understand Machiavelli's lesson, they listen to your confessions, nod sympathetically, and file away every piece of information for future use. The brutal reality is this. The world is full of people wearing masks, as Jung called the persona. Everyone is performing a role, projecting an image, hiding their true nature. But somehow, you decided to be different. You decided to be real, to be vulnerable, to be honest. And what happened? The masked people used your authenticity against you while keeping their own masks firmly in place. They learned everything about you while you learned nothing about them. Tell me, Who has the advantage in that dynamic? Machiavelli wasn't advocating for cruelty or deception for its own sake. He was teaching survival in a world where most people operate from self-interest while pretending to operate from virtue. And your radical honesty? It's not virtue. It's naivety disguised as morality. It's psychological nudity in a world where everyone else is armored. Here's what makes this even more insidious. People praise your honesty while exploiting it. Oh, you're so authentic, so real, so genuine. And you feel validated. You feel seen. But look closer at who's praising you. Are they offering the same transparency in return? Or are they studying you like a book while remaining completely closed themselves? Your honesty has become their entertainment, their intelligence gathering, their psychological advantage. But there's a deeper mechanism at play here, one that connects to your psychic energy. Every time you share truth with someone unworthy of it, you're not just giving information, you're giving away power. Jung understood that our psychic energy is finite. Every emotional disclosure, every revealed vulnerability, every shared dream or fear, these cost you something. And if the recipient doesn't honor that exchange, if they don't reciprocate or protect what you've shared, then you've just drained your energy into a void. Stop and think now. How many times have you poured your heart out to someone who barely remembered the conversation the next day? How many times have you shared your deepest truths with people who turned them into gossip? How many times has your honesty been met with indifference, judgment, or betrayal? This isn't bad luck. This is what happens when you give truth to those who don't deserve it. Let's go deeper into why this pattern exists, because understanding the mechanism is the first step to breaking free from it. Machiavelli wrote, "The Prince not as a guide to evil, but as a manual for navigating reality as it is, not as we wish it to be." And reality is this: humans are fundamentally self-interested creatures who, paradoxically, demand selflessness from others. Watch how this plays out. Someone asks you, "How are you really doing?" Sounds caring, doesn't it? So you answer honestly. You share your struggles, your doubts, your pain. And what happens? One of three things. Either they lose interest immediately because your truth is inconvenient to their comfortable worldview, or they file away your weakness for future reference, storing it like a weapon they might need later. Or, and this is perhaps the cruelest, they feel secretly relieved that you're struggling because it makes them feel better about their own mediocrity. Jung called this projection. People project onto you what they cannot face in themselves. But here's the Machiavellian twist. When you're completely honest, you make yourself the perfect screen for everyone else's projections. You become a repository for their unresolved issues, their judgments, their need to feel superior. And because you've given them so much material, you've essentially handed them the paintbrush to color you however they choose. Sigmund Freud understood that humans rarely operate from conscious awareness. Most of our actions spring from unconscious drives, unexamined needs, hidden agendas. So when someone asks for your truth, what are they really asking for? In many cases, they're not seeking understanding. They're seeking material. Material for gossip. Material to feel better about themselves. Material to use as leverage later. Am I being cynical? Or am I just describing what you've already experienced but were too uncomfortable to name? The most dangerous people aren't the obvious liars. They're the ones who present themselves as safe spaces for your honesty while operating from hidden agendas. They say all the right things. You can trust me. I would never judge you. Your secrets are safe with me. And you believe them because you want to believe them, because humans crave connection and vulnerability feels like the path to intimacy. But vulnerability without discernment is just self-destruction with good intentions. Machiavelli observed that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. In other words, people form opinions based on appearances, on surfaces, on the image you project. Very few actually understand your depth. So why are you giving your depth to everyone? Why are you casting your pearls before swine, as the old saying goes? Here's where this intersects with Jung's concept of individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming whole, of integrating all aspects of yourself into a unified, authentic self. But here's what most people miss. Individuation requires boundaries. You cannot become whole if you're constantly fragmenting yourself by giving pieces away to everyone who asks. You cannot integrate your shadow if you're too busy exposing it to people who will only use it against you. The paradox is this. True authenticity requires strategic inauthenticity. Read that again. To be genuinely yourself, you must be selectively yourself. You must understand that different contexts, different relationships, different situations require different levels of disclosure. This isn't being fake. This is being intelligent. This is recognizing that not everyone has earned access to your inner world. But you resist this idea, don't you? Because you've been taught that having boundaries makes you cold, that being selective makes you manipulative, that protecting your truth makes you inauthentic. So you override your instincts. You share when every fiber of your being is screaming to stay silent. You explain when wisdom would suggest mystery. You justify when power would demand nothing at all. And here's what's really happening psychologically. You're using honesty as a defense mechanism. Yes, you heard that right. Excessive honesty is often a form of anxiety management. By telling everything, explaining everything, justifying everything, you're trying to control how others perceive you. You're trying to prevent judgment by getting ahead of it. If I just explain myself fully, they'll understand, they'll accept me, they'll see I'm good. But Machiavelli would tell you that this strategy fails because it reveals weakness. It shows that you need their approval. It demonstrates that you're controlled by their potential judgment, and the moment anyone senses you need their validation, you've already lost. Because now they have leverage over you. Now your honesty has become your chain. The people who truly hold power, who command respect, who move through the world with sovereignty, they understand something crucial. Mystery is magnetic. Silence is powerful. Strategic disclosure creates intrigue. When you don't explain yourself constantly, when you don't justify your choices, when you don't defend your truth to every critic, you force people to wonder about you. And that wondering creates a kind of psychological pull that complete transparency never could. Think about the people you're most fascinated by. Are they the ones who share every thought and feeling? Or are they the ones who reveal themselves in layers, who maintain a certain enigmatic quality, who make you work to understand them? The latter, always the latter, because humans value what they have to earn. What comes too easily, what's given freely without cost, becomes worthless. This is why your excessive honesty often pushes people away rather than drawing them closer. You think you're building intimacy, but you're actually creating discomfort. Most people aren't equipped to handle raw, unfiltered truth. They want the comfortable illusion, the social performance, the carefully curated version of you that doesn't challenge their worldview or make them face uncomfortable realities. So I ask you now, looking into your eyes through these words, how much of your honesty is actually wisdom, and how much is just conditioned behavior? How much of your transparency serves your growth, and how much just makes you vulnerable to those who would exploit you? How much longer will you continue giving your truth to people who haven't earned it, who don't value it, who will only use it against you? Now comes the practical part, the transformation from psychological nudity to strategic authenticity. This isn't about becoming a liar. This isn't about manipulation for malicious purposes. This is about reclaiming your power through conscious control over what you reveal, when you reveal it, and to whom. First, you need to understand the levels of truth. Not all truths carry equal weight, and not all people deserve equal access. Machiavelli operated in a world of princes and political intrigue, but his insights apply to your daily life with surgical precision. There are surface truths, social truths that maintain harmony and facilitate basic interaction. Then there are personal truths, the struggles and dreams you share with trusted friends. And finally, there are core truths, the depths of who you are, which should be reserved for perhaps 3 to 5 people in your entire lifetime if you're lucky. But you've been treating all these levels as if they're the same. You share core truths in surface conversations. You pour out personal struggles to casual acquaintances. You reveal strategic information to competitive colleagues. And then you wonder why you feel drained, why you're constantly misunderstood, why your words seem to be used against you. It's because you haven't learned to calibrate your honesty to the context and the relationship. Start observing. This is Jung's practice of conscious awareness applied to social dynamics. Before you speak, pause. Ask yourself, what is this person really asking? What do they plan to do with this information? Have they earned the right to this truth? Will sharing this serve my interest or just satisfy their curiosity? Will this information empower me or expose me? Most people will find this uncomfortable because it requires you to be calculating, and you've been taught that calculation equals coldness. But here's what they don't tell you. Everyone else is already calculating. They're just not admitting it. The person asking probing questions, they're calculating. The friend who wants to know all your business, they're calculating. The colleague who's suddenly interested in your life, they're definitely calculating. You're the only one playing the game with your cards face up, wondering why you keep losing. Machiavelli advised that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Controversial, yes. But translate this to modern psychology. It is better to be respected than to be liked if you cannot have both. And respect comes not from oversharing, but from demonstrating that your inner world is valuable, protected, not freely accessible to everyone. When people see that you guard your truths, they unconsciously assign those truths more value. When they see you spill everything freely, they unconsciously devalue everything you say. Let's get tactical. Someone asks you a personal question. Your old pattern was to answer immediately, fully, hoping they'd like you more for your openness. Your new pattern: pause, evaluate, then choose. Why do you ask? Is a simple response that shifts the dynamic. Or, that's interesting, you're curious about that, which acknowledges without answering. Or simply, I'm still figuring that out myself, which is honest but reveals nothing. Notice how each of these maintains your boundaries while not being rude. This is strategic truth in action. But here's where it gets psychologically deeper. When you start withholding truth strategically, you'll feel guilty. That guilt is important to understand. It's not real guilt, it's programmed guilt, the social conditioning activating to bring you back in line. Society needs people to be readable, predictable, controllable. Your strategic silence threatens that system. So the system, internalized as your conscience, creates guilt to pressure you back into compliance. Jung called this the internalized parent, the superego in Freudian terms, the voice of societal expectations living in your psyche. And that voice will scream at you when you start protecting yourself. It will call you selfish, manipulative, cold, fake. But listen carefully. Whose voice is that really? Is it your authentic self, or is it the collective trying to keep you in place? When you recognize it as programming, not truth, the guilt loses its power. Another Machiavellian principle: never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. In modern terms, never use confrontation when strategic misdirection will achieve better results. Someone wants to know why you didn't accept their invitation? You don't owe them your real reason. I had other commitments is sufficient. They want to know why you changed your plans. I realized I needed to prioritize differently. Tells them nothing while sounding reasonable. This isn't lying. This is understanding that detailed explanations are weaknesses. Every detail you add is a thread they can pull, a weakness they can exploit, an angle they can use against you later. Powerful people speak in generalities. Weak people over-explain. Which one do you want to be? Here's a practical framework. Divide your life into circles. The outer circle, acquaintances, colleagues, casual friends. They get surface truths only. Pleasant, functional, but revealing nothing of strategic or emotional significance. The middle circle, close friends, some family. They get selected personal truths, what you choose to share after careful consideration of their capacity to handle it wisely. The inner circle, perhaps 2 to 3 people maximum. Only they get access to your core truths, and only after they've proven over years that they're worthy of that trust. Notice what this does psychologically. It creates hierarchy, value, scarcity around your authentic self, and humans are wired to value what's scarce. When you're an open book to everyone, you're valuable to no one. When you're mysterious, selective, intentional about who sees your depths, suddenly everyone wants access. This isn't manipulation. This is understanding human psychology and protecting yourself accordingly. But here comes the hardest part of this transformation. You will lose people. When you stop being the endless well of honesty they could draw from whenever convenient, they'll get uncomfortable. They'll accuse you of changing, of being fake, of losing your authenticity. Jung would tell you, this is projection. They're not upset about your authenticity. They're upset about losing their access to you. They're upset that you're no longer serving their needs without reciprocation. Let them go. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the necessity of cutting ties that don't serve you. He would rather have 4 loyal supporters than 40 superficial ones. Quality over quantity isn't just advice for possessions. It's strategy for relationships. Every person in your life is either adding to your power or subtracting from it. And those who only stayed because you overshared, they were never really there anyway. Start now, today. The next time someone asks you something personal, pause. Feel the automatic urge to spill everything, then override it. Choose a strategic response. Watch what happens. Watch how the dynamic shifts. This is psychic energy conservation in action. This is you taking back control over your own narrative. If you're ready to dive deeper into protecting your psychological sovereignty and understanding the shadow dynamics that keep you trapped in old patterns, check out my book, Beyond the Shadow. Link in the pinned comment. And then something remarkable happens. When you become strategically selective with your truth, when you guard your words like the precious resources they are, when you stop explaining yourself to every person who demands an explanation, a new version of you emerges. Not a fake version, not a manipulative version, but a sovereign version, a whole version. A version that Jung would recognize as individuated. First, you notice the peace. The psychological peace that comes from no longer feeling obligated to perform transparency for everyone. The relief of knowing that not everyone has access to use your words against you. The calm that settles when you realize you control your own narrative instead of letting everyone else shape it through your over-disclosures. Then comes the power. Real power, not the pretend power of oversharing while calling it authenticity. The power of mystery, the power of choice, the power of making people work to understand you. You enter rooms differently. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. People listen when you do speak because you're not constantly broadcasting. You've become rare, and rarity equals value. The relationships that remain after this transformation, those are real. Those are the people who value you, not just your utility. Those are the ones who meet your selectivity with respect, not resentment. Jung spoke about the difference between relationships based on projection and relationships based on recognition of the other's wholeness. When you guard your truth, you filter out the projectors and attract the recognizers. But here's the final, most profound shift. You stop needing external validation for your choices. When you no longer explain yourself constantly, you stop seeking approval constantly. When you don't justify every decision, you stop needing permission for your life. This is psychological sovereignty. This is what Machiavelli understood about power. It comes not from being loved by everyone, but from being self-determined regardless of others' opinions. You become misunderstood, and you become comfortable with it. Because you understand that being understood by everyone means you've sacrificed your depths for their comfort. Better to be a mystery to many and fully known by few than to be an open book that everyone reads once and forgets. The world will not reward you for this transformation with applause. It will test you. People will try to pull you back into oversharing. They'll guilt you. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. Good. You have changed. You've evolved from prey to player, from reactive to strategic, from psychologically naked to appropriately armored. And in that evolution, you've claimed something precious, the right to your own truth, given freely when you choose, to whom you choose, for reasons that serve you. Not because you're selfish, but because you finally understand what Machiavelli knew and what Jung confirmed through psychology. Your authenticity is too valuable to give away to those who won't honor it. Today, we learned from Niccolò Machiavelli that truth is power, and power should never be surrendered carelessly. From Carl Jung, we discovered that individuation requires boundaries, and authenticity demands selectivity. Together, these minds teach us that protecting your inner world isn't deception, it's wisdom. If this video resonated with the parts of you that have been too open for too long, hit that like button. Let's share this wisdom with others who need to hear it, and subscribe to PSYphile's channel to join our community of thinkers who refuse to live by society's naive rules. We're building something here, a space where psychological truth matters more than comfortable illusions. Write in the comments, "I guard my truth." Let's see how many of you are ready to transform from open books to sovereign beings. Let's see who's prepared to be misunderstood by many, to be genuinely known by few. Until we meet again, remember, the promise given was a necessity of the past, but the wisdom gained is the power of your present. Carry this forward. Guard yourself wisely. Choose your truths carefully. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational and hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.